Time to say goodbye. Welcome to the locker room. It is the last episode of season 1. We'll miss you enormously, but we'll be back for season 2. Bum bum. Greg Blake, DH. Welcome. And welcome back to the locker room, good folks. It's Tuesday night. It's kind of a sad Tuesday night because this is our last episode of season 1. We hope and we believe you've probably enjoyed the experience. 30,000 views. The question has been asked in recent weeks, why am I always attired in the same clothes? Here's the deal, kids. I worked in soccer for 30 years full time. This is the only set of clothes I can afford, so you can just suck it up and move with the times. HODGSON is with me, JFOT's with me. We've got a special guest, of course. Before we do that, don't forget, as season 1 trails off on Channel 31 on a Tuesday night here at the Springthorpe Country Club, we are still on Len McKendry watch. If you see him lurking around change rooms anywhere, if you see him paraflying across the Gippsland horizon, if you see Len McKendry, we want Len McKendry. Get back to us. We're going to get him for season 2. In the meantime, we're going to settle for another great champion of the game, along with Dougie, who's with me tonight. But somebody who sometimes has flown under the radar when we talk about great champions, and then you see him and you talk to him and you look over his career stats, Ernie Tapai, you were a gun. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
I would have you any day of the week, baby. You are just a gorgeous, gorgeous man. You haven't aged a bit. It's so great to see you. We're going to talk about your career, but look, I want to start from the very start because it reminded me, we had John Markovsky on last week and he was talking about a great goal that he remembers scoring at Footscray JFOT, the old Schindler Reserve, and that's a ground you know well because that's where you started your senior footy. Footscray JFOT no longer exists. How sad is that?
It is. They were a big club, like many other clubs in that era. Melbourne, Hungary, Prayaslavia, Halasakoa, just to name a few. And they died by the wayside. But it was a great opportunity for me. They didn't give me my first go, and I got a good run there and set my career off.
Well, it was your springboard. I mean, you played over 100 games there. And just before we...
what age? Like, we're going back 85 and... Without giving your age away, how old were you? We were talking to Jonesy last week, you know, he was 15, 16 striking into the National League. How old were you?
I wasn't quite 18, I was 17 when I signed on it.
17-year-old and going to play 100 games, you know, so...
In a time when the National League was, you know, it was a significant standard, wasn't it, Ernie, when you look back?
It was. It was tough. There wasn't as much scrutiny in terms of... I don't want to go as far as saying it was dirty. So you had to mature real quickly.
It was hard.
It was hard.
It was hard.
It was a tough game.
It was, and you soon knew that you were playing with men and against men, and you had to sharpen up or get out quick.
And before we move on from JFT, because there is an extensive career to talk about, including one wonderfully named club that I can't even remember, Chantel Chantuzzi or some crap. I don't know where.
You were hoping it was some girl.
It's not even a real club, is it? But. Look, the thing that always saddens me, and again, I watched JFT right through the 80s, and there were some genuine superstars in that team. And you go past now, and even the ground, the old Schindler Reserve, and you would have seen that too, it's been paved over now. It's factories and so forth. It's kind of leave you with a sense of, you know, really sadness because that's where you came from. That was the genesis of Ernie Tapai.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like having a child at home, and you go down and it's all bulldozed and they've
Nobody's ever bulldozed one of my children, but I get where you get.
No, bulldozed at home, yeah. But yeah, it's a little bit like that. I go past the reserve every now and then, and they've got containers there, or shipping containers and whatnot, and yeah, it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in the mouth.
Great players that you can recall from the JOST days, and there were some genuine superstars.
Oh, there were. The years that I was there, we had, you know, it was Zdravko Lujic and Vlatko Belic and Tom Karic, and then they brought some imports in. We had that Vlado Stosic, who was from Red Star.
And we talked about him with Chris Taylor a couple of episodes back. So the JOST legacy.
They were a big club, though.
I just want to know, you talked about it being tough. Do you remember, did you play alongside Kiri Kyriakoulias?
I did. I was, and I was involved in an incident where I was ready to go for a ball and he collided with somebody in wet weather conditions, a George Cross player who unfortunately broke his leg in quite a few places. And
so you remember the legend of Big Kiri as well?
Was it malicious or just a mistimed challenge?
Kiri was a big boy. He was a strong boy, and he never pulled out of any tackles. And it was just unfortunate that the two of them connected wrong, and running into Kiri was like running into a brick wall.
Yeah. No, he really redefined toughness. So moving along, I mean, everything springboarded for you through JUST. Where did the journey take you, Ernie?
I had a short stint at Sunshine George Cross, then went over to Adelaide City, went to Europe for a few years, came back to Gippsland, and went to Perth Glory. In between we had the short stint with Collingwood Warriors, and then finished my career in Singapore for the last 3 years in Singapore.
Except for that what's that weirdly named club? What, tell what it is. What is it? Chantel Chantuzi.
My first club in Singapore was a club called Home United, which I had 2 seasons there, which is it's a police team.
You're a home.
And it was a good setup. And then I finished in my 3rd year with a club called Clementi Khalsa, which is an Indian-based.
STD, yep, I've heard of it too. Got rid of the itch with just. I went to the doctors. It was cured within. It was horrible, but I got through it.
If I can, Blakey, I'll just pick my chance. It's all right. Mate, I want to take you back a little bit. You know, you represented Victoria, 13s, 14s, and 15s, 16s, 19s. I remember I was lucky enough as a kid when you played the under-15s at Frankston Pines, and I think that year, I'm not too sure if you went and won it that year or runners-up there. Who touched on your career? Because you've gone through the representative football there. Who touched on your career?
Well, we were fortunate enough in the state sides that we were able to have Tony Dunkley, who then became a commissioner of the FFV. Pretty much ran us through from 13s through to 15s, 16s, and then Tim White was the director of coaching, took the 19 squad. So and I was fortunate enough to be in each one of those squads. And we had a really good squad. We were undefeated for 3 championships, 13s, 14s, and 15s. We didn't lose a game. So we had some really good young talent in the squad, and we were either runners-up or won it on.
In that teams, is there anyone who really picks the mind out there, or anyone who's gone on in their career in that lot of lads?
The Victorian side had a few players that went on to play in National League. A guy by the name of Con Kiarkos, who had a very short stint at South Melbourne as a 15-year-old and then faded. We never heard of him again. Robbie Markovac went on and played at Melbourne Knights. Michael McLennan, I think he played at Preston for a short time and went to the World Cup in Russia in 1985 as well. But they didn't seem to. Probably Markovac probably lasted the longest, went on and played the longest. Victor Cristaldo was another name that was in that squad.
It's funny, you look back at that era and how many players, we go to my era, how many players went overseas, in the 90s. Was it a thing that happened then or not really?
No, and it astounds me in this day and age. We've got young players who haven't kicked the ball at senior level, and they're talking about going overseas. I was embarrassed to say the word overseas, and I'd already played for Australia 20 times, and I just didn't feel like I was up for it. So, how things have changed, it's almost if you're a good junior, don't even worry about.
You'll get there eventually.
Let's go overseas, and I don't think that's the right path. To be quite honest, I mean, let's face it. There's only 1 or 2 names that we can reel off that have made a success of their overseas stints without playing senior football in Australia. And Harry Kill's one that comes to mind.
Yep. Johnson, is going way back.
Another one. And they're probably the only 2. The rest of them had to do the work here first and get the experience here.
Fair point.
Ernie Tapai is our special guest, the diminutive will-o'-the-wisp legend from the old NSL days, and he's still kicking, and he's with us tonight on our very last show on Channel 31 for the season. A real big shout-out to our very good friend Robbie Slater. We'll talk more about that after the break. Welcome back to the Locker Room on this very sad and yet somehow eloquently happy Tuesday night as we say farewell to Season 1 with Ernie Tapai, Doug Hodgson and all the team on deck. Our thanks again to Channel 31. Our thanks again to the Springthorpe Country Club And our thanks again to all of those who are on Len McKendry Watcher mode. Very special thanks to you, Port Wog Boy. Love your contribution on the Facebook page. Look us up on the Facebook page, won't you? Ernie, I mentioned just a little while ago about your really, really good close friend from national team days, Robbie Slater, and that bizarre episode where stuff that it occurred, you know, a decade or more, became a controversy about a year ago. And I know that kind of affected you in a really bad way, but I'd prefer to look back, and we say hello to you, Robbie. Hope you're doing well. Am I right? Am I right?
Smile.
But I'd prefer just to reflect back, unless you want to completely savage Robbie Slater on air, but don't, because we're a fun show. Just
that would be fun.
Yeah, it would be
Could
fun.
be fun.
I mean, look, taking some... No, but
yeah, so you want to say, Ian.
Anyway.
Get it off your chest. Let's have a crack. I've been having go. People have been having go at me for the last 3 weeks. Let's just do it.
Because you have no talent and you're not likeable in any manifestation. But aside from that, you're great.
There's a lot of love, by the way, between us, as you tell.
Ernie, just rather than end on that sort of that tawdry note, nationally, your national career, which is fairly extraordinary itself, 50, 60 appearances for the national team. What are your enduring memories of that time?
I was fortunate enough to make the national squad at a very young age. I was 19 in 1986, and my last game was in 1998. So I got to see a lot of players in that time, and went through a lot of coaches, and certainly travelled the world, and got to play against some quality opposition. So I was very, very fortunate, and I'm blessed, and it's one thing that stays with me more than anything else is the experience that the national team gave me.
Is there any one particular, not necessarily a game, but you're saying experience, and that's what it is, isn't it? I mean, you're travelling as a group and you're experiencing all these marvellous things that people like me only ever dream of. Is there any one experience, if you will, that stands out as being something that you'd love to go back and do it again?
Look, probably the biggest experience and the biggest disappointment at the same time was to go to the MCG, and for the first time in Australian football, that certainly in our time, that we saw a full stadium singing the national anthem against Iran in '97. That stood out, and of course we know the events that led that after 90 minutes that unfolded, that will also live with us. But certainly the experience of playing on home soil in front of a home crowd, being supported by 90,000 as opposed to in previous games in internationals where we often felt on home soil that we were playing away from home. So,
and Ernie, do you ever sit back and just watch the videotapes just to remind yourself?
I haven't been able to watch the Iran game, unfortunately, but yeah, the kids every now and then bring out the tapes, and we'll watch snippets of games here and there, and some highlights.
I'm laughing. The only reason I'm laughing there because I have to admit I've gone the other. My kids have never seen the video. I've got 100 odd videos and such a name. The kids never watch. And I threatened her. I say, Dad, we'll put the video on before you go to bed if you don't go and do what you need to do now. I use it the other way. So I'll put the sleep. So eventually, kids, you will get to see. But take me through the MCG. 90,000 people. Now, you've played for Australia 54 times. And, like, we'll talk about Highbury. It's a very close-knit, MCG's a huge capacity, very open. What was the atmosphere like, mate? I know it's 90,000 will bring hairs. I got hairs thinking about it. But give me a club where you've been where there's a big crowd, and then this sort of. Can you try and bounce off each other and give me an atmosphere there?
Well, I was fortunate enough to play at Benfica Stadium, Stadio de Luz, which is considered one of the best in Europe. Of course, it holds less than 90,000 people. But it was special because it was, and I heard AFL players talking about it after the game that they'll have an AFL grand final, but the crowd will be split. On this occasion, it wasn't, and that made it special. And we had doubts as players leading into the game: will the stadium be full? Will the surface be up to scratch?
Which is a big one at the MCG. Yep.
Will the distance from the ground be too big a distance to the crowd? And those concerns were thrown out the window as soon as we walked out.
Could you hear, I know we go into our zone when we're playing, and could you hear each other when you play it?
Well, I only got to go on the last 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes of the game, but certainly it was loud, and the spine-chilling national anthem before the game was probably the highlight, because that is when you can actually soak it up, and you're not in your zone yet. So that's probably where it was.
I have to admit that's one of the highlights of when you hear the national anthem, and there's the hairs up there now.
And it's good that you've got hair, Doug. That's fabulous. We were all intrigued. Your bodily functions, it's compulsive listening, honestly.
Come on, we've got to go in.
What I do want because and one of the great disappointments about doing this, the locker room in Channel 31, is we get these great players, and we could actually sit here and probably talk for hours and hours. But one thing we do like to do, Ernie, is the 3 from 3. Who's the best? What is the best memory? Well, you've given us that. That's the MCG. So forget I even spoke. Best player that you played with and against.
In my opinion, and a lot of people have asked this question in a national squad, who was the best player? For me, it was Mark Viduka. He was, when you got into camp, everybody was pretty much at the same level. But Mark had a special attribute. He was so strong on the ball, you just could not get the ball off him. And we all know his talent in front of goals. So he had a distinguished career, obviously. But he stood out in a squad of 2024 at any time that we were together. He was just that little bit stronger and harder to get the ball off than anybody else.
And who gave you nightmares when you knew you were going to play against them?
And that's not looking at them.
Yeah, well, people like Dougie always, early in the years, in my first few years in the National League and whatnot, they used to scare me a little. There was no rules in those days. There were no 6 cameras around the ground, and they could get away with a lot. But as you get older, you learn to deal with those sort of players in your own way, and so that fear lasted probably the first 2 or 3 seasons.
Well, that was last week. Archie Thompson. Archie Thompson's copped one behind play. 6 players, I think. He's copped an elbow, and the boy from Sydney's got 2 weeks and more to come, apparently. So cameras are always watching.
A lot of the cameras around. In those days, there was only one behind the goals and one in the middle.
that was it.
And unfortunately, Ernie, oh God, it's so good to see you and so good to catch up with you, just as it has been with a lot of the champions and the superstars along the journey. We've got to take one more break. I think I'm going to tear up tonight. I'm feeling a bit emotional. We're going to be back after the break for our very last segment of the year. We've got Dougie's shirt. We've got JFOT coming up with all the news. That'll be riveting. And, of course, we'll be back to say goodbye and give some acknowledgements to the great people, the great friends of the locker room. See you in a sec. And welcome back to the locker room. Last show of the year, last segment of the year. I can feel the hair on my arms. Hope you've enjoyed the series. Have you loved us? Have we been gorgeous? It's only going to get better. Ernie Tapai is our guest. But of course, as always, to wrap up the evening, JFOT's on deck. Welcome in, Johnny.
Thanks, Blakey, and thanks, Dougie. And great to have Ernie on deck tonight. Mate, no news tonight. No news is good news, except that, like Blakey, I've watched about 400 games of senior football, never played a game. And this is the only shirt I could get into tonight.
And a nice shirt it is.
Mate, look, they're doing well. They're doing not too bad this year.
Ernie, who do you support in the UK, mate?
Oh, I was a Man United as a kid.
Mate, everyone supports
everyone's a Man United. Yeah, but now it's the time doesn't suit my lifestyle to watch any of the games, so I don't support anybody now.
Mate, I was going to ask Ernie, interested about his career, of course. Played a few seasons over there in Adelaide under the coach, of course, Zoran Matic. Can you let us know about what that time was like?
Oh, fantastic. Adelaide City was a great club, and Zoran Matic was the best coach that I had tactically. I was fortunate enough in one of the seasons that I was there, of the 2 seasons that we won the league and the cup. We had some great players there. But they weren't great players when they got there, and myself included. It was Zoran had actually taught us to play football.
What specifically, though? I mean, where in what areas do you rate him sort of above others?
Oh, in terms of team structure, and the players knew in advance where the ball was going to go. So we continuously at training did the same things over and over and over again until we got perfection. So many said that our team was predictable, maybe to them, but it was predictable to us as well, because we knew exactly where the ball was going. Yeah, so we had some great players. Just to reel a few off. We had Maxwell Tobin, Zabika, Ivanovic, the Vidmar brothers, Mullins of the world, Carl Wirtz. And look, I think they've all got Zoran Matic to thank, because they weren't great players when they got there, and Damien Murray was another one, but they were great players when they left.
So they learnt basically how to play as a team, and obviously once you get better as a team, it collectively gets everyone better. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you think they'd go, Ernie, I suppose, that sort of era? You know, we've had some other people talk very highly of Zoran, you know, technician and obviously tactically as well. How do you think that era of players would go in the new A-League system now? You know, obviously training every day, etc. How do you think they'd go? Because there's some big names in there, mate.
Well, you'd be surprised to know that whilst the league was semi-professional as such at the time, we did train every day under Zoran Matic, you know. And when I say train every day, he didn't kill us, but we went through moves continuously, and we had 5 sessions a week at least, every week, and sometimes more. So we were on par in terms of training schedule with probably what the A-League is now. Look, in terms of the way the A-League is, it's much more branded, and it's a fantastic setup. But I think that the players that we had, the quality of the players we had, and what we worked on, I think would fare very, very well in terms of the quality.
I think we could probably honestly say they could hold their own.
And I'll tell you why I think that the league at that time was in some ways stronger. You know, in terms of playing wise, you know, we had a player, Milan Ivanovic, who everybody marvelled at because he went on to play till he was in his mid-30s. I mean, we look at players now, and just about every club, and even the national team, is full of mid-30s. So that tells me that maybe there is a little bit of a drain of young talent coming through, and that's probably, you know, that's another topic again.
Mate, it's been great there. We're gonna go on to my shirt, because obviously time is time, and we're running out of it. Dougie's shirt, last show. I had to wear my old Sheffield United one, Ernie, because this is my last, obviously. My last era in England was at Sheffield United, leaving obviously reserve team manager at Sheffield. Had a year to go on my contract, and Dad wasn't too well, and I decided to come back to my shores here in Australia. So Dougie's shirt, a lot of memories. Cut me there, there's a blade, but we'll be back in 2 seconds.
And welcome back to the locker room. What a journey it's been. We've come from the iPod and the iPad and the computers onto Channel 31. And we've got to really acknowledge the particular people that have helped bring us the locker room together. We really hope you've enjoyed it. Channel 31, thank you so much. Man behind the camera there tonight, John, the guy that brought the whole project together in the first place, Nick. Sweetie. Sweetie. And that rich array of really special guests that we've had involved. It has been a fabulous journey for me. It's been great to rejoin or retouch my roots, if you will. There's no harm in that.
Root touching?
You've got to go. Sometimes you've got to go back and find your roots. He has been touching his arm. And look, gentlemen, I must say to you, John, for those of you that don't know John Frontenis, he is one of nature's most beautiful gentlemen. The amount of work he's put into this program. I mean, his talent on camera, I know, right? It's not necessarily
questionable,
but the amount of work that he's put in behind the scenes has been absolutely irreplaceable. And Doug Hodgson, despite your persona over the years, no, stop giggling like a schoolgirl, for God's sake.
I'm just wondering where it's going.
I just wanted to say thank you for being one of the most gorgeous men that I've known along the journey in soccer, and I've known a lot of people. Working with you has been an absolute privilege, and I'm so thrilled that we've managed to bring this together. I'm so thrilled that we've managed to get so many people watching the program on Channel 31. Don't forget our Facebook page, by the way.
Can I just butt in here, guys, and I just want you to know from us and the team, mate, what a fine job. And it's great to have you back involved in the game.
Haven't we had some fun?
We've had a ball, and thank you very much to you, Mr. Blake. Been appreciated, mate, and great support from all of us.
Could not do it without my incredible talent.
I know that is.
Channel 31 Tuesday night, we have got a season 2. Fingers crossed, guys, that we'll see you again. But I can tell you, honestly, most candidly, from all of us, we've really enjoyed coming into your house every Tuesday. That's what she said. See you soon.